He's blind, she's warm as a corpse, and this guy doesn't even have hands. Hardly the lovable cast from The Wizard of Oz. And yet, Eiji, Mizu, and Ringo are only a few of the flawlessly broken characters that make Blue Eye Samurai so perfect. What if I told you that your strongest characters are your most broken ones? Crazy, right? But if it wasn't crazy, then it wouldn't be writing. Like the girls that rejected you in high school, college, and beyond, the most captivating characters are the ones with crippling flaws, tragic pasts, and just the right amount of cut you in your sleep to keep you in the chase for the long haul. I love the chase. That's why today we're taking a look at Blue Eye Samurai, considering why we as audience members are drawn to a cast of broken people, how the show wrote each of its perfectly flawed characters, and how you, my emotionally constipated scribblers, can write your own cast of lovably broken characters, whether it's a hero, a villain, or something in between. So let's snap the femurs right off this sucker and kick this show into a spike pit with point number 1.
Anything so I can learn to be just like you.
Like me?
You're deformed, but you're still strong.
Now, I like a challenge as much as the next guy, but loving a flawed person is not the same as loving a flawed character. Whereas flawed people are what I romantically like to refer to as projects, flawed characters are more like mirrors. I see a character whose arrogance gets them in over their head. I see myself. I see a character whose naivety has butt-punched her into a corner of disappointments. I see myself. I see a cold-blooded samurai warrior whose only flaw is having fewer emotions than a goldfish. I see a self-portrait. On a serious note, we don't resonate with perfection. I have as much in common with Mizu as a stick of butter has with a fighter jet, and this can serve as a major turnoff for your viewers. None of them are ever going to be a master swordsmith, renowned samurai, or the Irish version of Jeff Bezos. But every single one of them can relate to struggling against insurmountable odds and pushing forward anyway. You see, flaws give characters vulnerabilities, and vulnerability builds connection with an audience. To clarify, this isn't the kind of vulnerability where your roommate posted a snap of you hugging the toilet after your last breakup. This is the kind of vulnerability we normally only get from a story. Stories allow us to see not only a hero's external victories, but also their internal battles. While we watch Mizu fight a jacked Ronald McDonald, we also come to learn that she is struggling internally with being of mixed heritage, growing up targeted and ostracized by society, and getting betrayed for beating her husband at razor-sharp foreplay. You and I are never going to fight a jacked Ronald McDonald, unless we show up drunk again at the restaurant at 2 a.m. and they're out of Big Macs. I warned you, Ron. But you and I can probably connect to some degree with being an outcast for something that wasn't our choice or fault. Something like who your father was, the color of your eyes, hair, or skin, or maybe your gender. We've all been rejected by some group or person at some point in our lives, and it's that rejection, that perceived flaw, that stigma of imperfection that either breaks us or forms us into something stronger. By identifying with this flaw or character wound, we as audience members experience what is called emotional mirroring, or sympathy. We not only understand logically what a character is doing, we understand emotionally what they are going through, because we have been there ourselves. This is why perfect characters suck. Unless you're a pure narcissist, you can give yourself an honest look and spot the imperfections in yourself. To identify with a fictitious character, let alone another human being, you need to spot their quirks, imperfections, and insecurities. Otherwise, you cannot sympathize with a character and the entire story falls apart. The point of fiction is not merely to watch a hero win, it's to watch them struggle with external clowns and internal demons, clawing their way tooth and nail over challenges that break them physically, emotionally, and spiritually. That's what makes them come alive, and that's how Blue Eye Samurai makes its cast so memorable.
What have I taught you about steel?
Strongest sword is a blend of steel. Soft and hard.
Pure and impure. You may be something shameful. You may also be strong.
In one sense, Blue Eye Samurai is a revenge story. But if we look at the story from a character-centric perspective, we see that it is a story about human imperfection and what each character chooses to do with their imperfection, which moves the story forward. This is done artfully well from a storytelling standpoint. AG states the theme line, that the strongest swords are a blend of steel, soft and hard. He teaches Mizu that an impurity can be a quality of a metal if it's in the right place. And while we as viewers understand that he is talking about swordsmithing, we can extrapolate the implied meaning that people need balance and that imperfections can give them strength. Allow me to fangirl for 10 seconds because this is writing worth aspiring to. It's subtle dialogue that these two characters should naturally have, and it provides us with a lens through which we should view every character. Something perfectly flawed or sinisterly wielded. We also get one of my favorite applications of symbolism, where a sword represents the work of art that is a person's soul. The divide between life and death, something that can kill and save. Scrap your scarlet letters, mockingbirds, and green lights. This is writing at its finest. Anyway, where was I? Oh, right. Flaws as a foundation. Once we establish that flaws give a sword strength, the storytellers apply this to every character in the show. Mizu's flaw from a societal perspective is that she is the mixed bastard child of a white imperialist, which is a sentence I never thought I would say in my life, and yet here we are. But, internally, Mizu's flaw is a relentless need for revenge, a metal so hard that she cannot bend, even at the expense of her friend's well-being. This rigidity makes her brittle and pushes her closer to the evil she despises in her enemy, Abijah Fowler. We see the same pattern repeated for our entire cast. AG is blind, but that's why he can hear and feel when a sword is perfect. It is also why he can overlook that Mizu is a societal outcast and judge her by the quality of her soul. Ringo has no hands, but that didn't make him bitter. Instead, he chooses to help great people do great things. He aspired to a goal greater than himself because, while his body limited him, it gave him a greater heart and drive to do good things. Both characters persevere and grow through their perfect flaws. Conversely, characters like Tokunobu, Eiichi Shindo, and Abijah Fowler persevere and overcome hardships in their childhoods, but they do not have balance. They do not use their art to enrich the lives of others. Instead, they use their pain and misfortune to create something ugly. In your own writing, shift your perspective and realize that a character's flaw isn't their weakness, it's the foundation for their strength, and that strength can be used for good or evil. Remember that the difference between a hero and a villain is that both characters have something terrible happen to them. They all suffer from unfairness and imperfection, but the good guy says that I will never let this happen to someone else again, and the bad guy says I will never let this happen to me again. Your main character, though, says I haven't decided which one is more important. So this might seem a little overwhelming at first. There are a lot of moving parts, and you're just trying to get them all to settle neatly into a little box that fits your theme and your symbols while still telling a great story. In this next section, we're going to go over strategies for actually applying this approach to your writing so that you don't go prematurely gray, and you can successfully write your own piece of art.
I hate painting, and woodblock, and ceramic, and calligraphy, and every other useless art I mastered to while away the hours.
This isn't everyone's favorite approach to great storytelling, but it's mine, and that's that character comes first. This isn't to say that I don't get excited to write a plot, a story world, or a theme initially, but when it comes time to actually bust out a pen and start scribbling down ideas, we start by looking at a hero that could make the story happen. For Blue Eye Samurai, the writers may have initially wanted to tell a story involving samurai, maybe something historical about Europeans' first arrival in Japan, or a story that tackled imperfections as a strength. That last one would have been a weird place to start, but hey, you know, it's art. We all have our processes. From here, the question then becomes, what kind of flaw should my character have, and what should they be trying to do to heal that flaw? Ask yourself what is broken about your character that they aren't willing to admit, because that's where every story begins. Without a flaw to overcome, there is no story. Without something at risk by overcoming or succumbing to the flaw, there is no tension. Tattoo that on your wrist, or write it in the margins if you don't like needles. By choosing your main character's flaw and goal as the story's central pillar and axis of rotation, you build a story based on emotion and character change rather than action and flashy lights. You can still have flashy lights, but now the story is way more likely to resonate with your audience because they can identify with the hero's flaws, and therefore, her strengths. Think of this like your last job interview. Debbie in Human Services asks what are your greatest weaknesses, so you spout off some crap about being too awesome. Debbie nods and checks the box on her clipboard that says you're smart enough to lie. But it's not a lie. You are too awesome. In fact, you're so awesome that you haven't spent any time with your newborn since they popped her into the NICU because you've been hustling. You're so awesome that you missed your wife's birthday because you had a business conference to attend in that abandoned strip mall downtown. You're so awesome that you didn't visit your dying father in the hospital because you were too busy fighting a jacked Ronald McDonald for market share at booth number 7. Your flaw is that you are a narcissistic workaholic, but your strength is that you are a valuable asset to your company, and Debbie likes valuable assets. We do this in storytelling by taking Mizu's tortured past and using it to make her into Satan's battletop. We use Ringo's physical handicap in order to give him a lonely life, and we use that loneliness to increase his empathy. We take Akemi's vulnerability as a political bargaining chip and use it to develop her cunning, courage, and ambition. You want to take a character's negative, spin it into a positive, and then deconstruct it back into a negative. A hero doesn't win by ignoring their flaw, they win by transforming it. Anger is a great motivator until you start neglecting your friends. Can your hero channel this anger? Empathy and loyalty are admirable until you start sticking around in abusive relationships. Can your hero decide when loyalty matters most? Vulnerability is nice with people who love you, but it's not great when your dad uses you to overthrow the government. Can you be just vulnerable enough that it allows you some voice in your own freedom? For any character, recognizing the flaw comes first, then comes balance. Otherwise, you run the risk of allowing a flaw to define a monster instead of a hero. If a character never acknowledges that a flaw is causing problems in their lives, this can create a villain. Yes, Abijah snacking away on his sister is what made him into a ruthless cutthroat, but after something that dramatic, and after having eaten the only person he cared about, what problems could Abijah possibly have left? What does he have left to lose or lead him to reconsider his actions? Nothing. He only has a past to run away from, and that flaw fuels his ability to run. Tokunobu learned his life lessons on a farm, understanding that sweetness can kill a pig, that women are akin to pieces of meat that can be traded for wealth, that struggle and positioning oneself properly are the means to power and salvation. Like a sword made only of hard metal, it is the character's inability to bend, to compromise their life lesson on behalf of human decency, that causes them to break into something artfully evil. And the worst part is, the villains aren't wrong. There is some degree of universal truth in their life lesson, whether it's a brutal nature that keeps them safe, or a manipulative means of thinking that helped them acquire power. The villains don't see their flaws, only the strength that unbridled flaw provides. In your own writing, realize that the key difference between writing a hero and a villain are those 2 extra steps of recognizing a flaw and making the changes necessary to control the strength it gives them.
Thank you for my ember.
Your characters don't need to be perfect. In fact, they shouldn't be. Give them a wound, a grudge, a scar that is internal as well as external. Whatever it is, let their flaws shape them, bend them, maybe even break them, because that's where the story lives. Not in the victory lap, but in the mix of rage and broken bones that got them there. Whether you're writing samurai revenge epics, office romances, or mind-bending mysteries, your character should be cracked in all the right places. Not because broken is perfect, but because broken is real. Thank you guys for watching. Support the channel by leaving a comment or getting the 99-cent copy of my book off Amazon. And until next time, keep writing the best stories possible.